If you or anybody you love depends on the use of contraceptives to prevent unwanted pregnancies, you should know the Supreme Court wants to get rid of your right to birth control. And they likely will have the support of the U.S. Republican senators who recently voted against the Right to Contraception Act. First, the Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade and took away a woman's right to end an unwanted pregnancy. Now, they could be on the verge of striking down the landmark decision that gives people the right to use contraceptives. Hello, I'm Steffanie Rivers, and you're watching my journal. Welcome to my show. I'm multicasting on several platforms, so you could be watching on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or even Twitter, on whatever platform you're watching. We want to welcome you to the conversation. I am watching the chat, so if you want to comment, I'll be listening in, looking in on that. Now, Griswold versus Connecticut is the 1965 landmark Supreme Court decision that protects the right of married couples to use contraceptives without government interference. Now, it was passed 59 years ago this month. Throughout the years, Planned Parenthood led the way to expanding the protection to include not just married couples, but also unmarried people, which is why anybody who wants to use contraceptives has that right. But as people are prone to do, we took for granted a woman's right to end an unwanted pregnancy. Then that right was taken away. Some of us take for granted the availability of birth control pills and other contraception. Now that protection could be under attack. So I want to know, does that even matter to you? Should the use of birth control be a protected right? Let me know in the chat, because that's what we're talking about today. Now, the same way that he and other justices believe a woman should not have the right to end an unwanted pregnancy, Justice Clarence Thomas has said he thinks that the Supreme Court should reevaluate Griswold versus Connecticut. That's the case that I just spoke about that gives the protection for married couples and other people now to use contraception without government interference. Why do I think so? In essence, Thomas said that he believes it should be struck down. Thomas said he believes Griswold versus Connecticut should be struck down. Now that means that he believes families, women married or unmarried, should not have the right to decide whether or not to use contraceptives. Now, it's clear that ain't nobody trying to have Clarence Thomas's baby. So that's a given, that why he doesn't care whether or not somebody has the right to have a child. But it's not about him. It's about you and yours. This decision has been a protected right since 1965. That's 59 years. Thomas has been on the bench since 1991. That's 33 years. Now, if this was something that Thomas truly cared about and believed in autonomously, why is he just now speaking up about it? Now, could it be that the reason that he's being so vocal about it now is because of the 103 gifts that he has received from people over the last 19 years that total to more than $2.4 million? That could that be the reason that he has been swayed? Now, is his seat up for sale? Is his opinion up for sale? Even my 8-ball says that that is decidedly so. I meant to have my 8-ball over here with me. It's over there on the bookshelf. Remember when we used to have those 8-balls and you would ask it a question, you shake it up, and then you ask it a question and you'd be like, okay, my 8-ball says. Well, my 8-ball says that Clarence Thomas is really not what he thinks. but he's being bought and sold, and now he's trying to pass legislation that other people have paid him for. So that's what that's about, in my opinion. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at TCB Steph. Also, send me some of your questions in the chat. I'll be looking for that. So, in case you're wondering about the other justices and how many gifts they have had over the years and what they have acquired over the years. Now, over the same 19 years that we just told you what Clarence Thomas did, 103 gifts worth $2.4 million. Over the same 19-year period, the other justices have accepted a total amongst all 7 of them, I think it is, 93 gifts total, with a total worth of combined $248,000. Now, this information came from an organization called Fix the Court. They've been lately keeping up with backtracking on who these justices are and who these people are who are giving them gifts. And we already know that Clarence Thomas leads the pack, and he's been taking gifts and transportation on private jets and paid vacations by certain people. And so that's why I think he is bought and sold. That right to contraception bill that Republican senators voted against, it's clear to me that there is a concerted effort, some might call that a conspiracy, to keep women barefoot and pregnant. Okay. Now, why do I say that? Well, why do I believe that that's the concerted effort? Some white people are trying to figure out how to retain their majority race status in the United States. That's why. More births of white babies, obviously, is how they plan to do it. They're creating breeders, white women, whose sole purpose is to birth babies who in turn have worker bee people, and they do what they're told, they vote the way they're told, they think what they're told, rinse and repeat. Now, Thomas is willing to do other people's bidding, and those with the money, they don't care who they buy and who plans to do their bidding. They just want to know that you're willing to do what we told you to do. And that is why I think that the Supreme Court should have term limits. Do you think the Supreme Court should have term limits? Now, whether you consider yourself to be a Democrat or a Republican, there are pending issues that are before the Supreme Court and Congress that we all should be concerned about. Don't just vote along party lines. We have to ask questions. We have to demand answers. And if their answers don't line up with what you want for you and yours, then you have to have the courage to do what you have to do. Vote for who is going to be there to represent you, and not just a face or a certain skin color of a person. Or we have to start realizing that these people, most of them, don't care about you and me. They only care about their agenda. And so we need to start questioning them and knowing who we're putting into office. Now, this is why, again, lifetime appointments for Supreme Court justices should be limited. There shouldn't be any lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. Some of them are selling their vote to the highest bidder, or they're clearly voting their personal opinions when they swore that they would be impartial. They swear that they're gonna be impartial, but then they say comments. They make comments and they do interviews, letting you know clearly that they are not impartial. Where else can you get a lifetime job appointment, work 9 months out of the year, and get paid approximately $270,000 a year? Nowhere. So if you only, at some point, I mean, I'm sure everybody starts out, let's say, I hope everybody starts out with genuine, a genuine desire to be impartial. But along the way, it's turning out like these people are like not impartial at all. And as time goes on, just like when you start with any position, you're like, oh, you're so excited, you're so like free, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna do the right thing. I'm here to do the right thing. And then as time goes on, people start offering you gifts and money and all kind of stuff, and you're like, I could be doing a whole lot. This could look a whole lot different if I just, say this or vote this way or that way. And so, yeah, at this point, term limits need to be put in place for Supreme Court justices. And the Oklahoma State Court has made, now I'm switching from the Supreme Court to the Oklahoma Supreme Court. If you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. The Oklahoma Supreme Court has made probably the most controversial decision in its existence. The court just this past week has thrown out or dismissed essentially the lawsuit for reparations for the last known two survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. So all the evidence, all the witness accounts, all the news reports, even official and unofficial accounts of what happened to Black residents living in Greenwood, in the Greenwood area of Tulsa, Oklahoma, clearly shows that residents in the all-Black section of town known as Black Wall Street were targets of violence. And it all starts, as it always did back then, is somebody claimed that somebody touched a white woman, looked at a white woman too long, did something to a white woman, and something like that, and then all hell broke loose. So that's what happened. So let's see. Philip Collier is saying expand the CODIS to 13, one for each district. Okay. Yeah. So if you expanded it, that's a good point. You could expand it especially if you're going to have it to be a lifetime appointment, at least have more of a cross section of opinions or cross section of representation. That might help it in this situation. But I say if you're going to keep it at 7, have term limits, most definitely, or because that's just a lot of power for one person to have. Let's say you are appointed to the Supreme Court when you're 50 years old, and most people live to around 75, 80 years old. That's 30 years, 35 years that you have for you to influence and dictate what's going to happen for generations to come. And so, yeah, that is a long time for you to have that type of power. That's longer than the president. He's supposed to be the most powerful person. And that's why the president likes to appoint certain people, because they know that power is going to extend long beyond them. So good point, Philip. Thank you for that. So as I was saying, we were talking about Black Wall Street and the Black people in the Greenwood section of Tulsa being the target of violence. That's their property, their land, their homes, their families were attacked because somebody claimed that, I think it was, in this case, it was somebody in the elevator, got in the elevator with a white woman or stared at her too long or something like that. And she got scared. And then it came out that she lied. I think that was it. They all probably be lying. And so I'm getting the people who lied, and this might not be the one, but I'm pretty sure it came out that she lied. Or at any rate, when they came down to the jail in Tulsa to the white people, the white mob that came to the jail because they ended up locking up this individual who was accused of aggrieving a white woman. And when they came down to the jail to the white mob to get him and hang him, they had already, the black people in the neighborhood had already said, we know what's going to happen. We're going to protect him. And when the white people showed up, the black people said, hell no, not today. Okay. So then the white people got mad because the black people were protecting their own and defending themselves. And then they went to their neighborhood and started fighting and then started setting stuff on fire. And so that's how the Tulsa race massacre started. And at the end of it all, I think it was like a couple of days, about 300 mostly black residents were killed, did not survive that. And when it was set afire, the white-run city fire department and all the city officials refused to show up to put out the fire. You know, you depend on, if you have a fire, you depend on the fire department to come and put it out. Well, they didn't show up. So Philip is saying, I remember what Carol Anderson said about white rage. They hate black progress. Indeed, they do. Indeed, they do. We didn't need Carol Anderson, although I remember reading the book. We didn't need her to say that. We could see that in our everyday lives. They just, hey, well, you look too good, you smell too good, you just are like so confident, so happy. They start looking at you like, what the hell are you so happy for? Anyway, yeah, all the above, Philip. So after the going back to the Tulsa riots, the race massacre. Now, after the Greenwood area was burned to the ground, city officials acknowledged their part in what happened, and they claimed that they would help to rebuild Black Wall Street. But guess what? 103 years later, they never did pay the people back. They never did do what they said they were going to do. And I did a story, a podcast, might have been a couple of years ago about it was a letter that was found in the wall of a house in New York. The letter was written from somebody who lived in Tulsa in 1921 to his relatives who lived in New York in 1921. I guess it was an old house. Whoever had bought it, they were about to restore it, renovate it, and the woman found the letter, and she said she started to throw it away. But when she got to looking at it, it clearly said that the person who wrote it said to his family members in the letter, yeah, I was at work that day. It was from a white person. I was at work that day, but if I wouldn't have been at work, I would have been down there burning and looting and killing and doing all that. He said he would have been down there with him. He said he was mad that the city had agreed to rebuild the Black people's neighborhood. And so all accounts say that this was a conspiracy. It was a conspired effort on white people's part. Okay. And so at any rate, if you want to see that letter, it is in the Tulsa letters of, I'll have to email me if you want to find out. I'm trying to think of it off the cuff. I should have already had it, but the Tulsa Artifacts, there's this organization, like they authenticate whether things are really true. And this letter was sent, the lady who found it in the wall, she sent it to Tulsa, to the Artifacts place in Tulsa, and they authenticated that the person who wrote it used to work at this certain place at this certain time. So they realized that it was really an authentic letter. So anyway, 103 years later, the city of Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, has never paid survivors or their descendants reparations. They never made anyone whole. And the Oklahoma Supreme Court claims all the violence that was perpetrated on the Black residents that day in 1921 that it doesn't meet the standard for reparations. Now, if that doesn't meet the standard of reparations, nothing does. But clearly, they have paid reparations to a number of incidents, in a number of incidents. Tuskegee experiment victims got reparations. Japanese internment camp um, prisoners got reparations. The Rosewood residents, Rosewood, Florida, got reparations. Of course, 9/11 victims and their survivors got reparations. So there are a number of people who get reparations, but for some reason, Oklahoma has said that this incident does not meet the standard for reparations. So yeah. Now, in 1921, Black Wall Street used to be at least a mile long and a few blocks wide. Today, it's just one block and a hodgepodge of businesses. I go to Tulsa every now and then on business. And if you haven't, and I put that picture up because that is the wall, and above that wall is the highway. They built a highway through Black Wall Street. And of course, I guess I don't know who sanctioned this picture, but it's showing, all the smoke and all that used to be there. And so a mural basically of Black Wall Street. But honey, they need more than that. They already know y'all burn them down. They need reparations. Okay. So today it's just a block of hodgepodge of businesses, and half of them are moving out. The last time I went, let's say it was like 3-4 months ago, there was the barber shop was still there. A guy who said he's been there for like 40 years, and he was cutting some lone person's hair. Again, today it's just one block, and the city ran that highway through Greenwood, and they built a baseball field on top of Greenwood, the Greenwood district. The city is getting paid all because of people coming to Tulsa wanting to go to Black Wall Street. So they built a museum, they built, monuments, they got all this stuff for you to look at so they can make money. But the people who paid the biggest price get nothing. That sounds about right. So if you know anybody who wants to talk about who's from Tulsa or from Oklahoma, and they're interested and they have family members who might want to talk about what their next move is to make sure they or if they're gonna, if this is the end of their fight for reparations, let me know. I would love to have them on to talk about it. And that's it. Don't have any more. But to find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. It's at eurweb.com.